a warning?
There ain't nothing to worry about.
I'm worried that you work in an office. Have children. Celebrate wedding anniversaries. The world of heterosexual is a sick and boring life.
From the people who brought you Halloween, more of the night he came home. Halloween 2.
There was nothing within him, neither conscience nor reason, that wasn't even remotely human.
Don't miss the all-new Halloween 2. More of the night he came home. Halloween 2, rated R. The horror continues. Starts Friday at a theater near you.
Welcome back, listeners.
Welcome back.
Halloween season.
Another Halloween movie. Quite literally a Halloween movie.
You know, we're all about spooky season here on the show, and I think I've come around to this film after many years.
I'm looking forward to talking about it.
As am I. Listeners, we're glad you're here with us for this journey. My name's Pete.
And I'm Scott, and these are the movies that made us gay.
Yes.
Musician, singer, songwriter, and also friend of ours, Gabe Munoz. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me back.
You're very welcome.
Last on for the Selena episode. One of those episodes that, great episode. I'm very proud of it. I remember so many people reached out about that movie, salty that they weren't included on it. But you got it.
It was an honor. I loved going over that movie with you guys, and I got great feedback from it, too. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
We saved you a banger. We are revisiting the John Carpenter Halloween movies, specifically the second one, not directed by John Carpenter, but Halloween 2, directed by Rick Rosenthal, written and produced by John Carpenter and Debra Hill, released October 30th, 1981.
Yeah, I don't know if it's famously not directed by John Carpenter, but...
Well, I think John Carpenter is a little salty about this movie.
Sure.
Of when you read about his involvement of this movie, he kind of begrudgingly developed and wrote the script.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, at least he got a chance to write the script and didn't have to just say, like, fuck it, they took it away from him. I mean, kind of, but at least he had some input in it, and it was just kind of his story, his continuation.
Yeah, kind of everything that I've read about it, that Carpenter, Debra Hill, who he was married to at the time that they made this movie, they were separated. They separated right before they made The Fog together. And Tommy Lee Wallace, and he was the production designer of Halloween. He is married to the actress that plays Annie in Halloween. But they had originally kind of didn't really want to do a sequel to the original movie, and one of the producers of The Fog kind of more or less like really sold them on it. I think it was one of those things too that they were given an offer from Universal Studios that they really couldn't refuse. So they just kind of ended up writing the screenplay and handing off directorial duties to Rick Rosenthal, who went on to do Halloween Resurrection.
Yes,
I forgot about that.
Remember that those two movies are the same director because they're pretty different.
Very different.
Yeah. I also read that John Carpenter was quoted in saying this from this book called Taking Shape. It goes over the development of a lot of the Halloween films, and specifically for Halloween 2, he says that this was a film that the studio was going to make with or without them.
Yep.
So basically it was like, well, we might as well be involved for the integrity of the film.
Sure.
And that's why he is sort of begrudgingly involved in this one.
Okay. And Halloween Resurrection, listeners, if you're not familiar, that is way down the line of sequels, and that is famously...
Tyra Banks, isn't it?
Tyra Banks and...
Busta Rhymes.
Yeah. It's the MTV Halloween movie. That one's wild. That one's post H2O.
That's the H2O follow-up.
Yes, like direct sequel. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the idea is that the first Halloween really is such a tight story that you can see the writer, director, the person who kind of created it saying, like,
I don't know if there's anywhere really to go
where do we go
with this movie.
Although, Dr. Loomis. I mean, you could write a fucking like college thesis on Dr. Loomis. That character is wild.
Yeah.
And Donald Pleasence, God bless him,
doing the Lord's work in these movies, approaching this character like he's doing Shakespeare.
I mean, you may think that this movie is the more camp. I don't know, but really, go back and watch Halloween 1. He's really selling it in that movie. The evil has escaped, bitch. Like he's
honestly, Dr. Loomis is so funny because as a character, I feel like if I was a kid in Haddonfield, I feel like I'd be just as scared of that guy as Michael Myers. Totally. He's so intense and like scary in his own right.
Totally.
He really did play it up well.
He's the boogeyman in the movie.
Yeah.
He's like, Lonnie, get your ass out of here.
Yes. Just like
So
the
good.
wide
This,
flying
like,
trench coat.
This almost, it's not Shakespearean. Help me out. Like a soothsayer in like Greek.
Oh, sure.
In like
And like a Greek tragedy
Greek
or something.
tragedy and drama, just like the soothsayer warning about Michael Myers
Yeah.
to all of these town people
Yeah. Love
who
it.
just don't want to listen to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Donald Pleasence, I mean, God bless him. He came back as many times as he could, right? Isn't he in a few other ones?
I think that he shows up in 4 and 5.
Also 6.
Oh, geez.
Yep.
Yeah, he is in Halloween 6.
Which one is 6?
The Curse of Michael Myers.
The one with Paul Rudd. All right. Well, before we get kind of too into Halloween 2.
Paul Rudd was there, yes.
No, I know Paul Rudd was there, but I'm thinking the clump before H2O, 4, 5, and 6.
Right.
There were 3, and they are increasingly crazy as we go along.
Right.
So 4 and 5 are really Danielle Harris. Those are her movies.
Yep.
And then 6 is Paul Rudd comes in, and then it gets
They're getting into the weird cult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they tried to come in and kind of wipe the slate with H2O.
Yeah. Also in 6, just a quick
Soft
note,
reboot.
Danielle Harris isn't in 6, but her character is. They recast her.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
See, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Is she?
It's been a while since I've seen Curse of Michael Myers.
Yeah, that one is a wild ride.
And I know that the director's cut is very different than the theatrical.
Yeah, that one had a few different cuts, and I know most fans prefer the producer's cut versus the theatrical release.
Okay.
It's a much different story.
We can get into the fandom a little bit later because specifically with Halloween and reboots and requels and all that in 2018 and that trilogy being what it is and the response that it got, I think it got a very different response from maybe just an average moviegoer who's just like, oh, we don't need these requels and they suck and all that. And I think the Halloween, like real hardcore Halloween Michael Myers fans are just like, we know how this series has its ups and downs. So
my whole thing with
Scott and I take 'em
sequels,
with
my
a
whole
grain
thing
of
with the
salt.
sequels is I think there's a lot of rose-colored glasses of the quality of all of those movies.
Yeah.
With how the fan response to something like Halloween Kills is that, I don't know, is most of them are pretty bad. When you kind of dissect a lot of the bullshit that's going on in all these movies. So before we get too into discussing Halloween 2, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your background with the original, Gabe.
Yes. I grew up watching the Halloween films really early on. Like, it was a rebellious act kind of from my brothers and I. We grew up really religious, so obviously when you say you can't do something to religious kids, we're going to watch the MTV, we're going to put on the AMC horror movie-thons, and Halloween was always there. And I was just fascinated with the original film, like as a kid, as young as I can remember, and I just would watch it every year. It had just this like warm tone and atmosphere that I loved. As scared as I would be watching the film, I was also just like entranced by it and loved watching it. It was just so good. And the older I got, the better of a lens I had watching the film and kind of understanding the themes more and the characters more. And I got to just like digest it a lot better. But I was always a fan just cinematically of Halloween and the characters and the scares in it.
So we did a double feature of Halloween and Halloween 2. We watched them back to back. It's interesting to watch both of them back to back because you see very different tones going on, which I think in my viewing the other night I really enjoyed. Just kind of seeing horror change from the late 70s and then early 80s. What really struck me on our 1978 rewatch, it's 1978, right?
The original.
Yeah, the original, 1978. Because Halloween H2O was 98, so 20 years later.
There you go.
What I was really struck with the original was, I mean, it's been said a lot, but just how tight of a story it is that when you kind of break down a lot of the sequels and just how convoluted all of the story is, Halloween's a pretty simple movie.
Oh, yes.
There's not really a lot going on plot-wise for it, and it's definitely not how movies like it are made now, let alone, I mean, over 20 years ago when they did something like Halloween H2O and Halloween Resurrection, is that it's just such a very solid 90 minutes of cinema.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've talked about this before. My friends and I would get together and watch Halloween every year. Every Halloween we would watch Halloween and watch Young Frankenstein every year, right? And we loved watching Halloween so much, and I know we're going to talk about this soon, because we all kind of grew up in the neighborhood that it takes place in, or that it was shot in, right? Not Haddonfield, Illinois, but South Pasadena and Alhambra, California. So we would go to these locations. We would drive
it's just
by.
sort of for a certain type of viewer. It's this love letter to this area of the San Gabriel Valley.
Yeah. But
You know
then, go ahead.
What's so funny is this is interesting, but I grew up obviously watching the film. I loved it. I didn't figure out that it was filmed in South Pasadena, which is right next door to where I grew up. Until like my teen years in high school. I was like, what? Like my favorite movie was filmed in the neighboring city. Like I didn't realize that even until later. So it's so funny that the town that it's filmed in and all those elements really drew me in. Meanwhile, it was all next door, and I didn't know until I was older. That was one of the fun discoveries that I had.
Yeah, totally.
As a adult watching the film.
Yeah, and watching it as teenagers and in college and stuff, kind of. I mean, IMDb existed, but it wasn't in our pockets, right? And it wasn't something that everybody referenced. So seeing things like, oh, there's a palm tree in the back, and just kind of having a little laugh, Did you and your friends ever clock when Laurie and Annie are about to talk to the dad sheriff, and they pull up next to the hardware store? Did any of you guys clock that location back then? Yeah, we knew where it was. I know where that is. Yeah, we knew exactly where it was. Yeah, we knew the train tracks were there. The hardware store is in front of the Radica restaurant that's there now, and you could tell it looked the same even in the 90s. Just the Gold Line station wasn't there. But everything else, because we would go to that Trader Joe's. We would go, Mission Street was still a cool, spot, right? The coffee shop was there, all of that. So we were in that area a lot. So we knew that was there. But then again, not just that, we're all saying, it's a simple story. It's a tight little movie. It's 91 minutes with credits. And the thing that really got me, I was a kid who grew up on A Nightmare on Elm Street. That was my franchise. I loved Friday the 13th, but I skew more towards Nightmare on Elm Street. I did watch all the Jason movies as well. So I grew up on slasher movies and all that. But the thing about this one, to me, I was like, this is the fucking scariest one of them all. Yeah. It's scarier than any Freddy movie. It's scarier to me than any Jason movie. The original Halloween was just, that's why we watched it, because we were like, this movie is fucking scary. It was that and Texas Chainsaw that we were like, these are the scariest movies ever. Laurie in the closet, and he's breaking in, and she grabs a hanger with his hands right there, and she grabs it and turns it into a little weapon and stabs it. You're just like, fuck, that shit's so scary. So we were just we were so blown away by how this clearly a low budget movie, was just so effective in that this is the scariest slasher movie. So we were like, this is the real deal. This shit is legit, right?
Yeah. And I think also because the film was made with a lower budget, you match that with a storyline has a lot more simplicity, but can still kind of go in depth. I think it just paired really well, and you can tell that the film was just really made with love and care, and it had the advantage of just having like this town that felt, you know, spooky on its own to film at, and all of those elements just came together and made a perfect 90-minute film really for horror at the time. Yeah.
I have to say, the friends that I did watch it with all those times, all those years ago, friend of the pod, Aspie, we'd watch together. And she, the guy she was dating at the time, I remember, not at the time, but years later, hanging out with them at her apartment, and he came over, and we were like, we're going to watch a movie, and he brought some tapes, and he put down Halloween 2. And I was like, 2? What? Get this out of here. And he's like, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. And I was like, well, what's the deal? I don't think I've even seen it. And he goes, it's crazy because it's like, it's not even the next day. It's like
immediately
the next
it's
minute.
It's under 20 minutes later when it starts.
Yeah. And I was like, that's interesting. So I always thought that was, you don't see that a lot with sequels.
No.
It's really just like a continuation of the first movie, but goes off into its own direction. It doesn't have the same vibe, right?
Right. I feel like John Carpenter was just faced with the decision of where do I go with the story, and he's rightfully so in love with the original story, as we all are, that for him it was probably like, okay, I need to write this as close in time frame to that film as I can. So
I was reading about Carpenter and Hill's original story for Halloween 2 after the events of the first movie, and they had originally planned to have Myers track down Laurie at her new home in a high-rise apartment building.
Ooh, very Poltergeist 3.
I think would have been really interesting. I would have been into that. We love some spooky high-rise apartment buildings.
Okay, so now you have Jamie Lee Curtis with her signature short haircut. We're getting into the 80s. She's got Patrick Nagel,
a young woman of the 80s.
She's got Patrick Nagel posters all over her, all over her apartment. She's a Mugler woman. I like that idea. The interesting thing about this is that all the characters in the first movie died. So the fact that you are picking it up immediately where the first movie ended means you have to introduce a whole new cast of characters for us to give a shit about. And do we?
And Jamie Lee is not really in a lot of the movie.
And I think this is kind of where, when you do go into Halloween 2018 and that trilogy, then you start to see the parallels that they've built, right? Where, what's the second one? Kills. Halloween Kills. It's the whole hospital situation
she's
and all
again
of that.
in the back seat,
and she's
kind of the film,
she's in the back seat again. So it's kind of smart that they did that. You see some shots that were used, I think, in 2018 of the couple and Michael getting the knife and the couple eating. You know, the woman making the sandwich. Your favorite character?
Oh, I love
Mrs.
her.
Elrod. Have you passed by her house in South Pass?
No,
is that
where is it?
It's on Meridian. It's a couple houses down from the Myers house. It's on the same side of the Myers house.
Where it is now.
Are we talking about back then, or where it is now?
Where it is now.
It's still in the same place as it was back then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just down Meridian then. Okay, I'll have to. I walk down that street all the time.
Yeah.
I always not that spooky museum, but like a couple houses next to it.
Yeah, it's like after the stop sign from that.
I always try to recreate.
Oh, okay.
I always try to recreate because I do that walk all the time. I always try to recreate Laurie when she meets up with Tommy.
Oh, we just need to see the exterior, and we'll be able to figure it out.
I live right down the street from that corner.
Oh, work. Okay.
Yeah.
Love it.
The house on the corner looks a little different. They did some exterior work to it.
Oh, yes, with the purple flowers.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh, another thing that I think is really funny of when you hear kind of audiences complain about sequels, particularly horror movies, but when you kind of look at this time, we got a Friday the 13th movie every year in the 1980s.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that wild. The grandfather of all movies that didn't need to be made, Jaws 2. They were doing this shit at this time. So it's like, I don't know. Hollywood's been sort of trying to replicate
people complaining
years.
Today about unnecessary sequels. It's like
look back at Jaws 2 and Halloween 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people contractually obligated to appear in these movies or to make these movies.
Right.
So yeah, I guess it just stands to reason with all of Laurie's friends gone that okay, so what happened? There's this massacre in this small town. Bunch of kids are dead. One girl's alive, but she's all banged up. So we bring it to the hospital and the EMTs.
Right.
I
They
guess
tried to
that
make
makes
characters
sense.
basically out of all the nurse
Yeah,
employees and
yeah.
all the staffers.
But I would say the most successful character of them all is the last Starfighter.
Lance Guest as
Lance Guest.
Jimmy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy. We like. I like Lance Guest.
I think that he's maybe given the most to work with of anybody in the hospital.
Oh yeah, totally.
Because he has the whole he's kind of sweet on Laurie type of storyline. I never know if he is in high school. Maybe he was in high school with Laurie and he graduated a few years ago.
I think
Right.
you have to be a full adult to be an
Yeah.
EMT.
That's what I'm
like,
saying.
yeah.
Yeah, he definitely serves as like the companion of Laurie in that film, sort of like a sympathy driver, I think, on her
Right.
side because her dialogue is so minimal.
Yes.
You kind of get a dose of him every time you're seeing her.
That's true. Okay, so what is the real? Oh, Scott, you mentioned it. You looked it up. I want to talk about this wig on Jamie Lee.
Oh, I mean,
Oh yeah.
I think that if you just look at a movie like The Fog from 1981,
Yeah.
it's it's Laurie's hair. It's
Jamie
Jamie
Lee's
Lee's hair at that time.
So in the first movie, that's her actual hair. But the thing is, the texture of that hair is a little interesting as well, right?
Well,
And
she has the whole story of like kind of doing a perm but not doing it right, so it just kind of looked a little fried.
Or I think the thing was she got a perm, but they didn't want her character to have curly hair, so they blew it out to straighten it, and then that's why it has that texture.
Oh, okay, I see.
And then in this movie, she had already cut it, not to her signature short Trading Places hair, but again, you watch The Fog, and it's a little more like mullet-esque, a little longer in the back, a little more shape to it, but still doesn't look like Laurie anymore. So they plopped this unit on her, and it's a little. Does it match the first movie? Maybe not.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's one of those details that subtly differentiates the night of Halloween
Yes.
2 from the night in the original Halloween. Her wig is definitely one of those factors in the film.
Yeah, for sure.
It's almost a little too literal of the look they were trying to go for.
Right.
I think.
Yeah. So when this movie starts off, Sheriff Brackett, Chief Brackett, Sheriff Brackett, I think
Sheriff, yeah.
Sheriff Brackett. He's there with Donald Pleasence, and there's this whole like Donald Pleasence, Dr. Loomis is just fucking wild. He's just ready. He's got a gun on Halloween night, running around. Again, the time. I'm getting off track here. What time is it? Who knows?
Right.
Sure.
There's
Are the
still
parents
kid- there's kids still trick-or-treating in this
Are the
movie.
parents still out? Are they still at this key party
Right.
that they're babysitting for?
Yeah. Tommy's parents are
Have
still
they
nowhere to be
reached
seen.
Laurie's parents? Because she goes to the hospital after being attacked by a crazy man all by herself.
and all her friends killed in the house across the street.
Yeah.
But
nowhere to be found.
yeah, but I feel like in the first movie it kind of like takes place over the extended night, and I think it gets later and later. And now in this movie it gets even later, but there's still kids trick or treating. Doesn't matter. But the thing is, Chief Brackett's daughter Annie was murdered, and he goes and like sees her body like at the beginning of the movie. That shit is so wild.
Yeah, it's pretty
It's
hardcore.
so dark, right? It's
Yeah.
so dark. And he's just like, Loomis.
You let him out.
He gets to have his.
Which he did not.
Yeah,
Like, to which I say, no, he didn't. Yeah.
Have you been listening to him ramble on
Yeah.
for the past 5 hours?
This is why he's shooting trick-or-treaters in front of you, because he did not let him out.
But yeah, he gets his full Mystic River moment.
Yeah. Send my daughter in there.
Yeah, it's funny how these films kind of handle trauma and shock. I mean, it's not done in a way that would definitely be done nowadays. I mean, that would be kind of picked apart. But I think for the times of when the movie was made, he gets a quick little.
He's a
scream at
he's a
Loomis
strong man, you know,
Right.
masculine. He's a sheriff, right? He's just like, all right, I gotta go tell my wife.
Exactly.
You know, I'll tell my wife before somebody else does. Our teenage daughter,
Right.
Annie. Annie was a little sassy, though. I mean, Annie had a mouth on her.
Yeah.
Yeah. From the original film, she kind of had it coming. You could. Just
She was
tell.
mean to Laurie. She says something about like, I'm
Scared
scared
another one away.
Right.
Yeah, but the scared another one away. But she said something about like, "Oh, stuck with you again" or something like that. I was like, damn, damn, harsh. Yeah, I just always think that scene is fucking crazy at the very beginning.
Oh, yeah.
When he goes to like find the daughter. I always mention that the other cop, the tall, like blonde cop who looks a little younger than Sheriff Brackett. I always remember him from History of the World with Mel Brooks. He has a really funny line.
Move that miserable piece
Oh,
of
this
shit.
miserable piece of shit! There's a horse that passes out. he's a Roman gladiator.
Do you know what kind of, when beginning the movie, I'm always like, oh, fuck yeah, is the synth score
So good.
by Carpenter, and then he was also working with someone else. But yeah, once that synth score hits, you're like, okay, we are in the early 80s of John Carpenter's career.
Oh, yes.
He is currently making Escape from New York, which, Gabe, you have never seen Escape to New York?
I have not.
You should see Escape from New
I
York.
gotta watch that one.
It's so much fun.
I love fun.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like the.
Ooh. I mean, it's the same music, but it's a little bit more like electronic.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just feel like the score in Halloween 2 is just as signature as the original film
Yes.
score. Also, it's a signifier of the film. It's so good. It's the same keys and elements, but done in that 80s horror synths kind of way, and it works so well.
Yeah, I noticed the beat of the main theme is a little different. I feel like maybe it's a little faster. Or there's more beats in there, but yeah, it feels a little bit more electronic, and yeah, it kind of.
Oh, and this is Laurie's theme, right?
This is Laurie's theme.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good.
But yeah, it definitely gives it a signature of which movie you're watching. I also love the kind of now iconic Halloween opening credits with the
pumpkin.
jack-o'-lantern, and in this one it like breaks open and the skull's in there, and it's like that shit's cool. It looks good. It's a practical effect. It's scary. Like, is that the scariest part of the movie? Maybe not. I don't know if I want to go in the dunk tank in the hydrotherapy room in the hospital.
That poor actress.
Oh,
She said that it was cold water when they were doing it, and I think that she got an ear infection.
Oh no!
Oh God.
She was down there for a while. When he had her head down there.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, so another big thing that is an indicator that this is the early 80s with slasher movies is this movie is very violent.
Very.
That it really, it's like, I think that two of the Friday the 13th movies had come out. I think the first one and part 2. That I was reading that kind of one of the big John Carpenter's notes of when he saw the original cut of this movie is it is not exciting enough. And he did some second unit stuff and made it a little more violent.
Yeah, apparently.
I don't know if that's true, but that's what I read.
I read that as well in the book I mentioned earlier, Taking Shape. He shares how, in studying the market of horror films at that time,
Yes.
He thought that the movie was going to need a lot more violence.
Our
scenes
audiences
and
are going to
gore.
be expecting more when
Yeah.
they go to the sequel. And maybe they're not wrong.
Yeah, and they actually did some test screenings of the Halloween 2 original version that they had planned out with some audiences. And funny enough, some of the feedback was Michael didn't kill any teenagers. And there's not enough gore here. So they also took that feedback and went back and did some reshoots that included more of the gory stuff.
Okay.
I'll always remember watching the Hammer to the Head.
Oh, yes.
When I was a kid, the Hammer to the Head.
Yeah.
And also, my copy of this was taped off of basic cable. So all of the really violent stuff probably would have been edited out.
Yeah.
Or they
Right.
would have cut the scene right before you saw something hit. So I remember watching the television edit of that, but I definitely remember the hammer scene.
Oh yes, you can kind of almost like recall the noise of the hammer going in your head. Like it's like a pop and a poof. It's just it's
okay. Two of the things that jar me every time I watch this movie. I mean, the biggest one obviously is the guy in the Michael Meyers costume getting hit by a car, pinned to another car.
Oh, Ben
and
Tramer.
Immediately
Ben Tramer.
exploding into a fireball of flames. Engulfed.
Almost comical.
I hope Ben Tramer is killed on immediately. Instantly. Because otherwise...
We hope that he didn't suffer.
What a horrible... It's I scream every time I watch it. I'm just like, like it's so jarring.
And that's within like the first 10 minutes
it's
of the movie.
It's early. And then the other thing is the trick-or-treater that comes to the hospital in the emergency room with the razor blade in his mouth.
That's hardcore. Like you can almost like it makes my teeth just hurt looking at that scene.
Yeah.
So the idea is what? He bites into like an apple with a razor blade in it?
Halloween.
Oh my God.
And got cut.
First of all, I think this is like cow tipping. Like, is this real? Probably not. And you always know people who are like, oh no, we did it. We went cow tipping. It's like, did you, girl? Because I feel like it's been myth busted. And I think the razor blades in the candy, poison in the candy, all that stuff has been debunked.
I think it was just sort of
I think
the 80s stranger danger message.
Yeah, but I think it was a guy who like poisoned his own kid and put poison in candy, and then it became there's poison in the trick-or-treat candy.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Don't eat any candy that's not wrapped.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not giving out any of my weed edibles to these damn trick-or-treaters. They're lucky they're getting a fun-size Snicker bar from me.
I remember us buying a full-size bar early in the Bonnie Street house.
And we never had trick-or-treaters.
We didn't have a lot of trick-or-treaters.
Yeah.
The trick-or-treaters that we did have
they loved us.
were fucking stoked, though.
Yeah, because we gave them full bars. We'll see this year. There's a lot of kids in this building.
There's a lot of kids in the apartment building.
So
maybe.
Depending on where we'll be, if we put out a bowl or
They'll
if
make
we're
the
here,
rounds.
yeah, we'll definitely give out good candy. I will say I'm partial to the like 80s and 90s fun size, not this little like postage stamp. Mm-hmm. You know the ones that are like really little?
The one that you would
what
get.
is that?
The one that would be on
like tiny cubes.
Yeah, they're cute.
It would be at like a doctor's office or something.
Like that's no fun. That's not a fun size.
Like the school secretary is going to have that.
Yeah. Don't lie to me and try to tell me this is a fun size. The regular fun size is barely fun enough. But the little baby's cube is get out of here with that.
We're not doing that.
But that scene with the kid's pretty hardcore. That I don't know in even
I hate it.
The Terrifier.
Rubbing salt into the wound.
Like all of the Terrifier shit that is on the screen right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could have that scene in a movie now.
With the little kid.
With the little kid.
With the child.
Yeah.
I know as far as Halloween 2 goes, there was like 4 cooks in the kitchen when it comes to this film.
Sure.
Deborah and John loved that scene.
Okay.
Apparently the studio did not.
Okay.
I could see that.
Yeah. It's interesting the way it's shot, and I'm sure it's just because practically the way they had to get this razor blade in this kid's mouth to look like it's lodged
I would
in
imagine
there.
it was sugar, right?
Or something. It's shiny, though.
Yeah.
It's reflective. But
Can
I
you
think
actually
it's
see
reflective on... Yeah. But that's the
they
thing.
make it
You
a point to have a good amount of lighting on the kid. So
it's a weird shot.
I feel like
the shot
I'm
is so weird that you're
covering
like,
my eyes during that scene, and I can never see it.
It's clearly a razor blade, but it's reflective of the light, like you're saying. So that's why I'm like, I don't know what it is.
Like, what is it?
But the way that they had to get it up there so that it stays in his mouth, it's very like movie magic, and you can tell there's a lot of stuff going on in the shot. It's not a regular shot.
Yeah, I feel like the kills in this movie are super
creative
and intentional. It's very like as you watch the film, you can see they're super structurally like plugged into the film.
Right.
And while they were doing it, they didn't want to be lazy about the craft of the kills, and they really make them each kind of stand out.
I mean, there's not any kind of dead air in this movie. Sometimes when you watch the Friday movies, and I'm kind of looking down at my watch of just There is nothing happening in this movie.
Yeah.
But not Halloween 2, though. Like,
No,
it
not
is
Halloween
off the
2.
ground and running from the first
and
scene.
even without all of the kills in this movie, I feel like Halloween 2 has a very good reputation as far as the tension build in the film, because even just watching, like, you know, the angles in the hospital when Laurie or one of the staff members are walking alone in these dark halls, and you know as an audience member that Michael's in there somewhere, it just builds the tension really well throughout the film. And it doesn't always need to lean on those gory moments to be entertaining, at least in my opinion.
Right.
And I think it kept that sort of integrity as the first film had, for sure.
Morningside Hospital. Patients check in, but they don't check out.
We're trying to figure out part of it. It looked like it said it might be where Huntington Memorial
I think
is
that
now,
some
but-
interiors were done at Huntington Memorial, but I saw that the location for the Morningside Hospital is now apartment buildings.
Ah, okay, got it.
I don't think that this location stands anymore in Los Angeles. My mom was a nurse when I was growing up, so I would have to go to the hospital a lot. So I think it's an interesting setting for a movie like this to be hospital at night. I mean,
An empty,
an
deserted
empty,
hospital?
deserted hospital at night, which, I mean, I would think that there would at least be maybe somebody working the front desk or the emergency room.
Yeah, this looks like an old haunted.
I mean, I guess that they are conserving electricity by keeping all of the lights off.
So, you
In
know,
this
there's
hospital at night.
I also read that there are scenes that were cut from the film, and one of the scenes was that Michael takes the power out in the hospital.
Oh, and there's a
Okay.
line,
So it's not
and
really
there's a line
explained,
that he
yeah.
cuts the phones too. So
Oh, that's right. The phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
phones are dead. Okay. I think the first movie really sets up, and the first movie does a lot of, like, they kind of show you instead of tell you. They set up this thing that whatever is wrong with Michael, we just know he's insane, right? But it's to this point where he kind of, I don't want to say he's got, like, superhuman or anything. It's not.
he shot him 6 times, Pete.
Yeah, that's where I'm going with this. But it's not supernatural, right? It's just the crazy makes you don't feel the pain. I think they lean a little too far into it in the David Gordon Green sequels. The hands are getting blown off from, like, weird shit.
Well,
It's
I
like,
never know.
come on,
I never
think
know
you'll
with
pass
those.
out at
I
some
never
point.
know with those
Yeah.
movies if they're leaning more into supernatural.
Into supernatural by the third one. Yeah.
By the third one, which I
Yeah.
feel like maybe they should have explored more.
Right.
In Halloween
Yeah.
Ends, I don't know.
So tell me PJ Soul's boyfriend's name with the glasses. Get me a beer. And he calls her an asshole. At
Is
any
it
rate,
Todd?
that guy, when he
that up.
kills him, he picks him up by the neck, right? So his feet are off the ground. So that's strong. And then he stabs him, and the knife, like,
Keeps
is
him up.
lodged into the wall
Yeah.
and keeps him up. You're like, all right. So he's got, like, super strength, right? And then in this movie, there's the one kill where he kills a nurse. With
Bob.
Bob.
Bob, there we go.
With
Give me a beer, Bob.
Give me your Bob. And he calls her, you asshole. I like calling a girl an asshole. I think it's funny. A straight guy calling his girlfriend an asshole. I love it. Okay. So then in this movie, Michael kills a nurse with a scalpel. A single scalpel the size of a pen.
He lifts her up with it.
Drives it into her back and lifts up her entire body, holding on to the scalp. I don't know what physics are involved in this, if this is actually a possible thing, but it's kind of setting up this, like, indestructible kind of Terminator quality that Michael has as his character. And kind of makes him scarier, that it's like, well, bitch, you're not going to stop him. By,
Oh, this movie even predates
kicking him in the
Terminator.
shins.
Terminator 1 was 84.
84. Yeah. So it's just
There's
this
a lot of parallels with the original
unstoppable
Terminator
force. Yeah.
in this movie,
Yeah.
particularly in Halloween 2.
Yes, I think more so.
I never
in
thought
this
about that.
one. Yeah.
I feel like between the original Halloween and this Halloween 2, they, as far as Michael goes, they do a really good job flirting with he's a man, but he's also immortal. I think they really leave it up to the viewers to kind of fill in some of the blanks when it comes to Michael. So they leave him unstoppable and indestructible, but also in the shape of what appears to just be a man.
Right.
I think the later sequels definitely dive more into that like supernatural realm, but as far as these first two films go, they play with it, and I think it does a decent job, you know, kind of just like playing around with he's a monster, he's a man, you know.
Yeah. And I think too, you know, this is pre Nightmare on Elm Street, which is completely in the supernatural realm.
Yeah.
But we had the first Friday the 13th the year before, but that didn't really feature Jason. So that one kind of doesn't have a supernatural element.
Not really.
Yeah. You don't really get it until you get to
It's a little more story driven.
Part 3, really.
Of
Which
kind
is
of
after.
Jason's backstory.
Yeah, because I was going to say, by the time we get to the later sequels, we're really fully embedded in 80s slasher, you know, iconic guy in a mask. And those are usually like Freddy and Jason, fully a mystical, like, not human person, right? So this one, it is very much straddling the line, like you're saying. And yeah, I think it does a good job of that.
Yeah.
We don't see him without the mask in this movie. We barely
No.
see him in the first movie for a split second.
Were you reading that it's the same mask?
What?
Yeah,
It's the same mask, but I mean,
I call shade.
So I think that the whole story behind why it looks so different is
It's falling apart.
Nick Castle would keep it in his back pocket in the original movie, so I think that it just kind of got wear, and then the mask went to Debra Hill, and she kept it at her apartment under her bed, and Debra Hill was a smoker. So I think that just sort of the mask
deteriorated it in
just kind of
ways.
deteriorated a little bit. But I think that there's certain scenes of how it's lit. It's pretty passable, though. I know that there's a whole fan ranking YouTube videos
Of the masks.
of all of the masks.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
this mask still stands as like one of the scarier looks for Michael.
Yeah.
For sure. Even though it was a little beat up.
It's been a long night.
Yeah, it's been a long night, and it still is a good scary mask versus
But
like some of the
I think
other
it's pretty
films.
cool. It's the
Yeah.
same mask, though.
Oh yeah, I like that. I think one of the things that changes about Michael in this film too, it's like played by a different actor as well.
Yep.
The first one was
Right,
Nick Castle. This one is Dick Warlock, correct? Is it
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, Dick Warlock.
So back to like Laurie's wig kind
Yeah,
of being
yeah.
a signifier of this film feeling a little different of the same night. I think that this Michael's walk feels a little different than the original.
Yeah.
It's like it's a slight difference. It's still
Yeah.
I think good, but it is a different feel as far as like the walk of the shape in the first film. It's interesting. This film is the first movie in the Halloween series that establishes Laurie as Michael's sister, correct?
Right,
Because in
yeah.
the first film, there's no storyline,
which
of
is
that.
something that I think that John Carpenter, after 5 beers, just kind of pulled that out of his ass.
Yeah.
Because when him and Deborah are developing the sequel of, well, why the fuck does he want to go after Laurie?
Right.
Just sort of
What's
kind
the
of
motive?
thinking, what's the motive?
Yeah.
Long lost sister, sure. That I think that it was probably just something that they just kind of threw out as, I guess that we'll just go with this because you have to justify it some way.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the big dividing thing with the timelines that we can
Right.
talk about. Of
Yeah.
if Laurie is Michael's sister. Yeah.
And it's funny because it's a creative decision that I would argue had they not done that, I don't know if we would have seen Halloween 4, 5s, and 6s.
Or at least they would have looked
because
very different.
They would look a lot different.
Yeah.
I don't know if we would get that far because they still had to latch on to this piece of well, Laurie is Michael's sister, so now let's bring in Michael's niece that he's
go going after the whole family tree.
Yeah, the family tree just kept growing at that point.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I know they have gone on the record in saying they resent that choice a little bit, but I think it's the choice that made so many installments to come.
I mean, I guess that he's tracking down his, what's Josh Hartnett? To his nephew.
His nephew.
Yeah.
That would be his nephew, yeah.
Which is funny because that guy is not related to Jamie. I think by H2O, they make 4 through 6 kind of canon. And
Yeah.
Well, I've heard. Okay, this is really getting in the weeds with the crazy flow chart of the Halloween movies. I heard in the opening credit sequences for Halloween H2O, apparently they had stuff filmed of Danielle Harris on the wall of Dr. Loomis's office.
Oh.
So I think that she at one point was going to be included in the montage during the credits of kind of the whole Michael Meyers and Laurie past, but maybe they just felt like it would have gotten too convoluted and complicated, so they just axed it.
Right.
But I think it's up for debate if Danielle Harris is in that timeline. So I think that she could be.
Yeah.
And they just don't talk about it.
Got it.
Do you know what's interesting about this being the actual mask is that there are some photos as you go into IMDb and look at the photos, and it almost looks like the white spray, because this is a Captain Kirk mask.
Yes.
Right? And it looks like the white spray paint is kind of coming off. And then
it's roughed up.
It's roughed up. And then you can see, there's that shot of Michael with like the blood, like tears kind of coming down. And then it looks like at some point they had manufactured that as a mask that you can buy. And when you look at it, they made it so that the white is not completely part of the mask.
Oh, interesting. The neck is flesh-colored.
Flesh-colored. Yeah. So, like, I wonder if the idea was that Michael found this mask and painted it white? There's no or was it just this mask?
We were
because it's a Captain Kirk mask that the eyes are cut out completely and then painted white, and then the hair is a little like combed a different way, and you can see in this movie that the hair is getting wild. Like the hair is getting it's
late.
It's a Halloween mask hair, so it's made of plastic, right?
Well, after last call.
Yeah.
Yes.
So interesting kind of little details like that when you see something that was mass market made, what they kind of added into it. So I don't know if you really watch the movie and pause it in certain scenes, you can kind of see that the spray paint that they used when they turned it from the Shatner
I wonder if you can notice that more in the 4K editions of the 1978 movie.
Yeah. I think in the first movie, it's probably pretty white, though. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting as I was looking this up.
I even think that the tag says Halloween 2 for that mask.
Oh.
When you get it at Spirit of Halloween.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I believe it does, yeah.
Do they still make the one with the blood
I think
tears?
So.
Oh, shit. That's crazy. That's crazy.
What's the really jacked up mask that
is it 4?
Fans hate?
Oh, God.
There's one where it's like it's really thin. His face
I feel like the Halloween 4 mask is very pasty, and it just looks too snowy.
Okay.
5 is an odd mask as well. I want to say it's different.
Oh, yeah.
Like a different mask.
It's 5. It's 5. Yeah. Is that one 5?
That one is 4.
That one's 4.
Oh, that one's 4? Oh, that one's
That's when
ugly
he's
too.
standing in the power lines and kills the electrician, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're
that
all...
mask is very, just like, it looks doughy almost. By Halloween 6, though, Michael looks like he's had a few burgers.
Oh, no.
His mask is just like, takes on different shapes. It's interesting.
Yeah. Why are the IMDb photos for Halloween 5, there's no actual photos of Michael? Weird. Oh, well. Yeah, okay. So the Laurie as Michael's sister. So what's the story? That she, after Michael killed his older sister, the parents, had Laurie been born yet?
I don't think Laurie had been born yet.
Yeah, I forgot what year it said. So then what? They have her and then they give her up for adoption? Because now she's raised by the Strodes.
Right, yeah.
So,
I believe that is the logic. The Strodes adopt Laurie.
Yeah.
And Michael is just after her to finish off the family tree.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah. And we get all of this exposition from the nurse from the first movie.
Yes. Who we
I
love.
always get really excited when she makes her appearance in this movie because I forget that she's in it. So when she does,
me too.
Nancy Stevens does come on screen, I get really excited.
Yeah, as a Nurse Marion.
Yep.
Yeah, we love her. We love her appearance.
She's been killed by Michael Myers in 2 different timelines, which I love.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because she ends up getting killed again in 2018.
Yeah, she dies in the opening sequence of H2O, and then she dies in Halloween Kills.
Kills.
Yep.
Kills.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good scene. Oh, yeah, that's with her and Kyle.
Yeah. Oh, Kyle Richards has the best scene of all of the David Gordon Green movies.
Yeah,
Hands
honestly,
down.
I did not expect a housewife to have some of
The
the most
range.
exciting scenes. And
Yeah.
also, I feel like her acting.
And she does the thing that people don't do in slasher movies is that she hides.
Defenders. Oh, hi.
Yeah.
She had
Which I
that
liked.
tree, Yeah,
Mhm.
she kind of plays it smart. She's a very likable character in the films,
Right.
and I even think her acting is a little better than the script at times.
Sure.
She really drives that mothering kind of nature about her home.
I remember when we saw Halloween Ends, we saw that shit in IMAX. Why did we go to that movie in IMAX
did.
at City
Why not?
Walk?
Because
But
we had the AMC.
I was so excited.
Pass.
I really had to go pee very early in that
yeah.
movie. I go to the bathroom and I get back and Pete's like, you
Miss
missed
Kyle.
You missed Kyle Richards. And I'm just like, fuck. And that is going to be all that David Gordon Green writes for her is just tending bar
Yeah.
in Haddonfield and reading like Laurie's cards.
Right.
Isn't that is that the scene?
They really made her work. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
But
was
doesn't she end up like? Is it Kyle that does the bricks in the pillowcase?
Yes.
Oh, love it.
Iconic.
Love. See, but that's somebody that's been preparing their whole life for the boogeyman, right? Like, okay, I know what the fuck to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Sensible.
And maybe not as crazy as Laurie Strode living in the woods, like in this fun house, but kind of a different path of that. Like, okay, I can hold my own in a fight against the killer.
Yeah.
I just have to put something heavy and put it in a sack of some kind.
I love bricks in a pillowcase. Great.
Do you think that Kim just resents all of Kyle's success from Halloween? Because, God damn it, she was the actress of the two.
I honestly, I don't even know what Kim thinks. Like,
I hope she's doing better, though.
I hope she's doing
I
all
hope
right.
so
I know
too.
she's been having a rough few months.
Yeah.
But I mean,
We love you,
Kim
Kim.
at the time would have been the actress. I mean, she got the
She was in all
bigger
the Witch Mountain
movies.
movies, yeah.
She did all of the big Walt Disney movies. She is in Assault on Precinct 13, directed by John Carpenter.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Assault on Precinct?
I have
Precinct
seen
13?
some of it.
Where you see her like gunned down
Oh,
as a young
I've
child. That is shocking. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that Kyle Richards got to be involved in the Halloween films a little bit later.
Yes.
She plays Lindsay in the original. What I find so funny though is in Halloween 2, this is one of the character choices writing wise maybe wasn't that great, but Laurie just has no questions about Tommy or Lindsay at all. She's in the hospital.
And
it's
I
just
think-
kind of like, hey, what happened to the kids? Like there's none of that.
I hope they're okay.
And it just doesn't seem like something that. I mean, I think that Laurie would at least want to know if they're okay.
Right.
I know that Jamie Lee Curtis has very mixed feelings about this movie. I think that she's very grateful for the Halloween fans, but I don't think that she really speaks all that highly of this movie.
Yeah.
Much like John Carpenter, because I know that John Carpenter has been on the record saying this movie's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Okay, so with Laurie kind of passed out in a hospital bed for 2/3 of the movie, like, who is our protagonist?
Well, I
right?
think
who
that-
are we following?
Well, and I think that's one of the big
Through
narrative
this
problems
movie.
is I think that maybe a stronger version of the script, it would be Jimmy.
right.
But I don't think that it really ever goes there. Because it's not like we can get attached to any of the nurses
Right.
as they're taking hot tub baths with their boyfriends
Right.
in the basement.
I think if any nurse stood closest to be the protagonist, it was Mrs. Alves.
Sure.
Gloria Gifford's character.
And she's really like the no-nonsense night nurse.
Yeah. Like,
she's calling out all their bullshit.
Right.
You came like 15 minutes late.
Yeah. I would have loved to see maybe a more dignifying scene of her death. Or like a little fight against Michael. I think that like she kind of earns it throughout the film, but instead we just find her, you know, bleeding out on a bed, and Michael's.
Do you even see it on camera?
All her blood.
No, because
She's
Lance just walks in and slips on the ground. I do
Yeah.
appreciate this movie does kind of realistically show a head concussion of when he walks out to the car and then passes out.
Yeah. Oh my God.
He's fucked up for a while.
The car scene, though, I think of all of the scenes that just give me the good kind of anxiety that I'm looking for in a film is her crawling out of the car and having to get up and run to the doors after she spots Michael in that red light behind her.
Yeah.
That's one of those climaxes in the film that just execute that, like, good, this is a scary movie and you should be scared shitless kind of feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think maybe that's kind of what's missing is really kind of like a solid protagonist for us to kind of go through the story with. Yeah, it's kind of jumping around. It's like, is it Dr. Loomis? I don't know.
Yeah, it seems to be the curse of like the part twos in a lot of these Halloween movies where like that protagonist all of a sudden becomes like sedated and subdued throughout the film. Like in this one, it's Laurie.
Yeah.
They even kind of do it to Jamie Lloyd in the later series. In Halloween 4, she's like, you know, a good sport of a kid running from Michael Myers. And then in 5, she like is kind of mute and then just, you know, suffering the whole time. And then again, like in Halloween Kills, Laurie takes the back seat. I don't know why they choose to scale back these characters when it comes to like the part twos of their films.
Yeah, that's interesting that it's kind of in each trilogy.
Yeah,
kind of
it seems to be a trend
thread
across the Halloween movies.
Huh.
I would think maybe they're writing it from a place of, well, they're traumatized, so we need other characters to kind of step up and be, you know, the protagonists. But I don't know. I think I think with this Halloween 2, it sort of hurts the film that Laurie is a little scaled back and a little helpless.
Yeah.
She eventually finds her footing and, you know, her way out of there, but I think it runs too long in that way.
I almost wonder if it's just an availability issue with
the actors.
Jamie Lee Curtis of maybe she didn't really want to keep doing all of these horror movies because at this time she was known as the Scream Queen.
Yeah.
Doing The Fog.
Yeah.
Terror Train. Maybe she just really wasn't that into it.
Prom Night.
Right.
Of just sort of, you got me for a week and a half.
Right. I did read that she wasn't into being in this film. She was trying to drift away from. Like,
that's probably
the
maybe script reasons why she's not in a lot of it. Is they know that they're going to be working with her for a limited time.
Right.
Yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis's career I am always fascinated with, of just kind of the ebbs and flows of that actress's career in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah. She's almost a chameleon of sorts. I feel like I've seen her in a variety of genres and like types of movies in Hollywood. She's one of those people.
I was thinking of what her career would have been if she just didn't get Halloween. What kind of a career in Hollywood or television would she have had? Would she just sort of had a couple appearances on The Love Boat and Emergency and then just kind of
Hotel?
Yeah. I think that the
slowly
Halloween
retire. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the Halloween film definitely, there are actresses and then there's marketable actresses. And I think that Halloween made Jamie Lee Curtis a marketable actress. And that was a film that studios and execs could say she can she can be in a movie and she can be a part of a hit movie and sell it.
So
and that definitely, I think, impacted the
we
trajectory
have
of her career.
a vintage copy of People magazine from 1978 with Three's Company on the cover, and there is an article spotlighting Jamie and her in this movie, and how this article is written is so bitchy.
It's pretty cunty.
That they're fully calling her a Hollywood brat in this article. So it just kind of puts into perspective at the time that there was this Nepo baby snobbery about her, that it was just kind of, well, this one's in this teenage slasher movie. I mean, they wouldn't even coin the term slasher in 1978.
Right.
Just this this like tasteless horror movie that Janet Leigh's daughter is in. Janet Leigh and who's her dad? It's
Tony Curtis.
Yeah, Tony Curtis. So just kind of interesting when you read that article and you just kind of see the maybe media buzz around her at that time.
Yeah.
Well, she certainly proved all of them wrong.
Yes.
Trading Places is released in 1983, and it's her big breakout.
Yep.
Like, it's a huge thing for her. It's a huge hit. It's a comedy, you know. She's seen as very sexy in that movie, but she's also holding her own, you know, with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd.
I've never seen Trading Places.
That's a movie that, like, your parents fucking love it.
Yeah.
Your parents love Trading Places. They thought it was the funniest damn thing they'd ever saw. And, yeah, and she was a sex symbol. Dads love Jamie Lee Curtis. Like, Perfect, yeah. Perfect is 2 years later in 85. I haven't seen Grandview USA, but I don't know how well that was taken, but that was in between Trading Places and Perfect. But yeah, that really just kind of made her a bigger star and led to things like Fish Called Wanda and Blue Steel, and then she kind of just became a A-lister.
Yeah.
And yeah, there is definitely ebbs and flows, you know, but
do you guys think that people see Jamie Lee Curtis and think Michael Myers Halloween, or do you think that it varies depending on generation? Do you think that it defines her
I think
as
it
an
varies
actress?
depending on generation. I think that we had this conversation in
Yeah.
our Freaky Friday episode with certain viewers, depending on their age.
yeah, generationally.
They do think of Freaky Friday, which I kind of love because she's so much fun in Freaky Friday.
Yeah.
I think people more her age, boomer audience, I don't think that they really think about Halloween. I think they think about kind of like the Trading Places, even something like True Lies, you know, just kind of serious.
I think that one of my first big
action comedy star, you know.
one of her big roles that I really remember sticking with me as a kid that I wouldn't have watched Halloween at this young of an age, but I remember her in My Girl.
Yes.
And always really loving her character in My
So
Girl.
good in My
Just
Girl.
thinking that this woman that was a aspiring movie makeup artist but was working at this morgue, and she lived in like this cool RV, and she just had a very like fun 70s look about her. I always really liked that character, and I always really liked her relationship with Anna Klumsky, Veda.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
what's the movie of her and the kids are in the basement?
House Arrest.
House Arrest.
I saw
oh my god.
I saw House Arrest in the theater.
Yeah,
Starring
House
Jennifer
Arrest.
Tilly. Yeah.
I think of that film as well.
Okay,
Which I
all
couldn't
right.
even name,
All
but
right,
that's
yeah.
like one of the things. And again, that's like childhood era.
Yeah.
Is House Arrest and Halloween.
Is House Arrest before or after True Lies?
I don't know.
I think
That's
it's
a
probably
good question.
after.
I have it. I have her IMDb up right now.
Yeah, it's 96. It's after.
Wow. Okay. I mean, if you're old, like I am, you remember Anything But Love, her short-lived ABC sitcom for
Golden
3
Globe
seasons,
winner.
Golden Globe winner, Best Actress in a Comedy with Richard Lewis. There were 3 seasons. She did 56 episodes. Very charming romantic comedy
Anything But Love is
sitcom.
just such a fun, generic title of a sitcom. Anything But Love.
Yeah, it was cute. My sister and I watched the hell out of that show. Really liked it. Loved Richard Lewis. Really funny, and she got to show her comedic side. Weekly sitcom. You know, good gig when you can get it.
I think that between that and Scream Queens, that's kind of her only television
TV,
work.
yeah.
I mean, besides clearly
In the 70s.
in the 70s and the early 80s when she was doing The Love Boat with her mom.
Quincy and like all those
Yeah.
weird shows. Yeah. But after that, it was definitely mostly film. I don't know. I think she has a place for kind of a lot of different ages of people. Like we're saying, people different ages like her for different things. People think of Freaky Friday, think of House Arrest. You know, so horror gays always go to Halloween.
Yeah.
Our parents go to the
movies. It makes
movies.
sense that she's the type of actress that when she's kind of in the running for an Oscar, she wins on her first nomination. It makes sense that she's sort of in that category of just someone that people just really love in the industry. And once they're kind of have the opportunity to be rewarded, they immediately
give it to her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Interesting, though, that through this long of a career, first Academy Award nomination, like all these years later.
Yeah.
But, you look at the movies. And
I don't know what she would have been nominated
what
for.
would she have been nominated for the other things.
Yeah.
Golden Globe nomination for Best Actress in a Comedy for True Lies. She won. She won Best Actress in a Comedy for True Lies. Must have been a slow year.
Slow year.
There was no musicals that year.
Well, that would have been 94.
Yeah.
So all of the major kind of award actresses would have been in drama.
I'll have to look it up.
Yeah.
But I mean, not given a lot to do in this movie. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I kind of want to just see more scenes with her and Jimmy. Maybe just something.
Yeah, I think that there was an opportunity for some sort of development with them too. I feel like in watching the movie, it seems like the filmmakers didn't know, do we make them love interest somehow? But then that would kind of be hard to
forced,
do on the night of, all these these killing sprees that Michael's committing. They just didn't seem to know where to go with this storyline. I think it would have been maybe better if they just were naturally supportive characters of one another, but
it can't be Ben Tramer because he is out with his boys drinking. Right. And he'll be out and he'll be out late.
Well, now he's
so
dead.
You'll have to call him tomorrow.
Exactly.
So it can't be him.
I really like Bud's character, the goofball.
Yeah, the other EMT.
Yeah, he sings the infamous Amazing Grace, come sit on my face.
Yes.
Is he the one having the sexy hot tub time?
Yes.
Okay, him. He's definitely one of the gay awakening moments in this film.
Whenever I would go visit my mom
mean,
in the hospital, I always wondered if there was a hot tub where
the hydrotherapy room,
the nurses and the doctors had some sexy time.
I know that seems so funny. I would wonder that too. Okay, where's that in the hospital?
Well, yeah,
Which
it's
I
giving,
always
American Horror Story, Asylum.
I always think
I
always think of those things in college locker rooms. Right. But I suppose that they would have them in hospitals.
I think old-timey hospitals
a physical
had
therapy area,
hydrotherapy. It was just really, really hot water, or really, really cold water, and I don't know.
Yeah, that hot tub scene is definitely one of the most, I would go as far as saying, iconic kills as far as 80s horror movies go.
I think the reveal.
So
I think the reveal of Michael is really scary in that scene. When you
but
see him in the back.
It gets into that creative kind of kill that Jason would later do. Where it's just okay, what's around us?
Yeah,
and I'm going to use what's in this room to kill you in a interesting
and he's
way.
well, you know what? Fuck these these medical professionals that should be doing their job.
Exactly.
So, that's an interesting thing because in the first movie, I think, is it Halloween that really sets up Stu and Scream's rules?
The rules.
For surviving a horror movie? Halloween is the first movie where the kids who fuck are the ones who die. Mm-hmm. And Jamie Lee Curtis stays alive because she's remains a virgin.
I think so. Yeah. I think that Scream has a lot of nods to Halloween.
Yeah.
And Halloween definitely, I think, established the common tropes of horror films where, yes, the virgin survives, the kids that are having sex do not. And
but then in
all
this,
of those types of things.
But then in this movie, he's killing nurses left and right. It's not just the ones who are fucking, it's everybody.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But the ones who do have sex get killed in a more interesting way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, even something like Black Christmas from 1974, I mean, a big inspiration for Halloween. Mm-hmm. That's not really what's going on in that story.
No, not
with
necessarily.
Those characters.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Funny enough, too, Jimmy, it's not really explained in the final cut of the film if he actually dies. He falls and passes out.
That's true.
And I know that there's an alternate ending where it's explained that he does survive and he's in the back of the ambulance with Laurie and she starts crying when he lifts up from the bed and she's like, we made it. But in the final release of the film, he just kind of like falls on the blood, and then that's really
That's right. And he just goes and passes out in the car, and then his story is
that's
done.
it.
Yeah, and then you don't see him
And
again,
that's
so you don't really
it.
know what happens with him. But yeah, the alternate ending, I think, did a better job of explaining what happens to him. But I don't know if for the final movie they said, you know what, it should just be Laurie that gets whisked away in the ambulance because she's the ultimate survivor, like that we care about. I don't know.
I have a lot of questions about the character that Dana Carvey plays.
I don't even
Credited
know where he is
in
in the
Wikipedia
movie.
as Barry McNichol. I just did a
Garth. He's credited
I
on
did
IMDb
a-
as assistant.
I did a Google search of Dana Carvey in Halloween 2, and he is with the news reporter outside
Jesus.
of
There's just
Lindsay's house.
yeah. It just says in IMDb. It just says assistant.
Yeah. I think he's an assistant. He's probably like the camera guy
Yeah, that's funny. They gave him a name on Wikipedia.
to the news reporter.
I read something interesting about the news
Was
reporter
it shot in
scene.
Canada?
So one of the other plot holes in Halloween 2 is like how Michael makes it to the hospital. So I guess later on they realized they needed to clean that up. So they filmed the boombox scene that was filmed in Kirsten Court in Sierra Madre, where the kids walk.
Yeah.
So they filmed that after all of the movie was done. They realized they had to go and fill in some gaps. That was one of them because I guess an original scene was that the news reporter
Mentioned the hospital.
And she was like, I'm going to go and get to the hospital to get a quote from Laurie. And en route to Haddonfield Memorial Hospital, Michael gets a hold of her and kills her and takes her car to the hospital.
Was he watching the news?
I don't.
Was he watching the news?
He was.
Was he watching like the news from like a storefront
That's funny.
He seems very tuned in this
downtown
town.
Sierra Madre?
We did kind of clock that. We're like, is that it?
It is. You know what? I got coffee there this morning.
Oh,
I was
that's
sitting
funny.
in Kirsten
Okay.
Court.
At that Starbucks?
No, at Syndicate, this other coffee shop that's right next to Starbucks.
And
basically.
Beantown is not there anymore.
Oh, Beantown's not there
gone.
anymore?
No, I think it's gone.
Do you remember when that old lady drove through the window
I
of
think
Beantown?
that was the final death. No,
Oh, no. It didn't bounce back?
I don't think so. I
What
could be
was
wrong.
that? Was it a bar?
It was a coffee shop.
Oh,
It was a coffee shop up a little bit, like in the middle of from the Starbucks to the end.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a little coffee. It was a cool coffee shop that sandwiches and
had
ice
friends that worked
cream,
there.
and we had friends who worked there forever. They would have live music every now and then. Just a cute little coffee shop.
Yeah.
But someone drove it.
There is a scene in Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. I think that when they're watching those commercials, they shoot in those storefronts right where the Starbucks is.
yes. And the bar that is right there in the same little like spot of town is in Halloween 3 as well.
That's right. Have you ever been to the graveyard?
No.
Oh, you should
haven't
go to
been
the graveyard. It's really cool.
That's the one location
Yeah.
I haven't gone out of my way to go
It's
to.
a
but
cool
I
old
It
graveyard.
looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you can find every headstone. You can find all the shots, line them
Wow.
up. It looks the same.
Wait, did you guys walk through the alley in South Pass that is in the beginning of Halloween 2?
Oh, I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
So the alley is right behind Mrs. Alrod's house.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah,
then I
so
know that alley.
That long
yeah.
alley, yeah, that's the shot that is in the beginning of Halloween 2.
Oh.
Where Michael walks down, and that's how he breaks into the house.
Okay.
It's that back alley.
It's the alley that takes you to the Pretty in Pink house.
Oh, okay. I know where that is.
Yeah.
I was just walking down that the other day.
The house that's closest to the train tracks, it's completely covered in shrubbery that you can't even see the house anymore. That was in Pretty in Pink with Molly Ringwald. in the
Andy's
80s.
house.
Yeah, that was her house.
Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
you could see it then.
Yeah.
You can't see it.
See, that's what's fun about all of these movies is that like tracking down all these locations.
Yeah. And we live around so many of them
Yes.
here in South Pasadena.
And we're so lucky about that, and it's such a bummer now with just film production that you don't really see that with films anymore.
Yeah.
That are really shot around Los Angeles. I mean, they're all shot in just random.
Well, now people in Atlanta can go and say they know where that was shot.
They can go and say
What
that
neighborhood
they
that
know
was.
where
WandaVision.
Yeah.
I mean, although Did they build that whole town?
I think the WandaVision set. I think that's like
they might have built that.
I think that's like the new Colonial Street, where they shoot all of those movies.
So never mind.
But yeah, I mean, it's just such a bummer that you don't really see that anymore,
right?
With film production,
yeah,
like they don't use South Pasadena anymore, just as any town in America.
I mean, the idea was in the first movie and in Back to the Future and in Teen Wolf and all those movies in the 80s that shot here was that, hey, all these craftsman style houses, all these mid-century houses have a timeless any town feel. But the problem is there are fucking palm trees everywhere. Yeah. So, and that was a big issue that they had to handle in the first movie, was bringing in a bunch of dried up like maple leaves, throwing them on the ground and blowing them with the fan in front of Jamie Lee Curtis as she's crossing the street to make it look a little bit more like a fall Midwest kind of town. I guess, but now the problem is it's just they're getting tax breaks to go and shoot in British Columbia or Georgia or wherever. But I think that's just a very old, like the end of old Hollywood in the 70s, just like Jamie Lee Curtis talks about being under contract at Universal.
Yeah.
Like a contract, like a fucking old ass.
It probably got her a lot of television work at the time.
Well, yeah. And she was a contract at Universal because that's where her mother was contracted. So it's like, but towards the end, just like, oh, sure, we're going to go out to, South Pasadena, wherever the hell that is, and just go shoot out there for a couple of days. Because there's that whole like LA has every kind of backdrop that you can imagine.
Yeah.
Even though none of us have ever gone surfing in the morning and skiing in the afternoon.
Absolutely.
I don't think anybody will ever do that.
So you mentioned something interesting when we were at work the other night of just kind of Haddonfield as this, I mean, it's like it's like the fifth character in Sex and the City. It's like New York City. Yeah. Of just kind of Haddonfield just being this big presence of all of these movies that maybe some of the other sequels is kind of missing.
Yeah.
It's just kind of this community. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I definitely view Haddonfield as a character itself in the film. There's this warmth and presence that I think Halloween 1978 and this Halloween 2 both really have, and every movie thereafter tries to establish the same thing. But in Halloween 4 and 5, I know they went to Utah. Halloween 6, I'm not sure. It's this atmosphere that each film tries to replicate because, yes, Michael is from Haddonfield, but I think there's something special about it being filmed in South Pasadena where it just has that essence where there's, big trees that shadow over the streets and you can kind of just feel that spooky vibe naturally in itself of this city. I think that Haddonfield is one of the most important things that you need to have right in any of these Halloween films, which is funny because I know earlier you mentioned that they maybe wanted to do a high-rise situation in New York, and I'm like, I don't see Michael on like 57th and Broadway. Like I see him around the tree bend in Haddonfield, So I'm glad that they didn't go that route. But I think it's its own thing.
One of the sequels, I think it might be the Paul Rudd one. They are living in the Myers house.
Yes,
and they go outside.
There's always something so weird.
Yeah, that ain't Michael's.
There's something so weird about how a lot of the sequels recreate the house, and it's just not the same.
It almost changes every time.
I just transferred Trader Joe's, and all of the TJs have local art on the walls and kind of these famous kind of landmarks around town. And I noticed today in our first huddle, there is a little Halloween house.
There is.
I'm pretty sure that it's a little
nod to Michael.
It's a little painting. I don't know this for sure, but it looks like the house.
Wow.
Yeah, which I love.
Oh my God. That's yes, cool. Because the other South Pasadena Trader Joe's doesn't have any alluding to being in Haddonfield, which it literally is. So I'm glad if the new store does have something as a nod to Halloween because it's iconic to the town.
How do you feel about how when they return to the house and Halloween Kills?
I think that if there were anybody returning to live in a Myers house, it would definitely be two gays.
Yeah, I kind of like that whole element.
So that was spot on.
I think the
Big John, Little John.
Big John, Little
Yeah.
John. I think the exterior looks great.
Mm-hmm.
I think they even matched the color scheme to the colors that it's painted today. Because today it's
Yeah.
blue with like a reddish trim.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what the architectural like terms for the little like things in the corners, little like things. And yeah, so it's blue with
They
a
made an
reddish
effort.
trim. And I think
a much
they
better effort.
yeah, so I think they matched the build of it. It's correct, and I think they even came here, saw the colors that it is, and made it that color in the movie.
Yeah.
I do think it's bigger on the inside because that house is small.
Well, it's a movie.
That house is
Yeah.
small.
Yeah.
And
I snuck into it once when I was in high school.
really?
I did.
Ooh.
I just went through the front door. I saw there was like business front names
Yeah.
on it, and I was like, "Well, it seems to be public." And I walked in, and it felt like tiny.
Yeah.
like it felt like a home that was made for a film.
like a dollhouse.
A little
Yeah,
dollhouse.
it was like a dollhouse.
Because even in the very first movie, when he's looking through the windows, and then in the POV as he's walking through, that like living room is like, what is this room?
Yeah.
Like, it's so little. And the
yeah,
stairs-
the little kitchen. Table
Yeah,
and,
and so I think in the sequels, I do think it's bigger on the inside, but it's fine. You know, I think they did such a good job with recreating the exterior
Yeah.
that I'll kind of forgive it, and the kind of campy element of this gay couple, just like
Right.
we live in Haddonfield.
We
What
bought
better
this
home?
fucking
we
house.
just flipped.
like,
we just flipped the Myers
we
house.
flipped the
Yeah.
Myers house, and we're going to make it cute.
Yeah, I
don't care.
appreciated that they featured that in Halloween Kills. I don't know if it was essential to the film,
No,
but I mean, you know, it was nice that we got to revisit the Myers house.
I remember cackling when Michael put on the Anne Murray album. That Michael Myers is just a big Anne Murray fan. It's so
Man,
stupid.
He's a child of his
Yeah.
time.
Yep.
Yeah, Halloween Kills. Now that it's been 2 years since the film came out, I can appreciate.
Dude, God, it feels like
Yeah,
10.
I know, right? I can appreciate its campiness and its entertaining aspect. It's just, I think, one of the weaker ones. in that
I would
David
be
Gordon Green
into that
series.
movie.
Yeah.
I would be into how weird that movie is if it was trying to be scary at all, which it is not.
Ah,
Right.
So I would appreciate all of those weird elements, like with the male babysitter. Like I would be into that if it was scary.
the radio
Yeah.
station.
Yeah.
Like all that shit.
And the radio station doesn't even pay off.
It doesn't.
Yeah,
It doesn't. I think they're just kind of going for a very early 80s
Sure.
kind of movie vibe.
We're gonna
that,
kind of crown the new Michael Myers.
I guess.
Yeah.
And also it's the third movie, so maybe it's kind of borrowing aspects from Halloween 3 and that it's has not one foot, Halloween 3 is its whole body out of Haddonfield, but I don't know.
I thought they might bring up the masks from 3.
Well, they were
somewhere.
in the earlier
They're
movies.
in the
kids are
earlier
wearing
movies. I
them.
thought that they might
Those
do the
piece of shit
Clover.
kids.
I thought they might
Yeah.
do that whole company.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
But yeah, they didn't quite go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, kind of going back to Halloween 2, I always remember being maybe not disappointed with this movie, but I think that when you're young, I think that Halloween 1978 is just such a hard movie to follow. And I mean, it even is for all of the creators of this movie. But I have to say, I think that whenever we revisit this movie, I do appreciate it for what it is, especially in the landscape of slasher movies of the early 80s, that I think it's more watchable than some of the Friday the 13th movies.
Oh, yes,
That I
for
think
sure.
that for what it's doing, I do think it's successful
Yeah.
when you revisit it now.
Yeah. I think that they had a job to do and they were, given the chance to do a sequel. And I think that that was probably the best way to approach a sequel.
Yeah.
Was to keep it the night of, continue the momentum of this psycho going on a killer binge and have your most important characters there, Loomis and Laurie. It doesn't feel like a pointless sequel to me, which I think sometimes a lot of sequels feel that way.
Yeah.
Like the new Joker. But this one,
Oh, we haven't even seen it yet.
I haven't either, but that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
So it's
I
already.
hear it's just boring.
Yeah. So with Halloween 2, I think that, it does its job as a sequel. I don't think that we should always expect sequels to be better than, their original films, but just an honorable extension. And I think that this one is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. I did have an attitude about it a long time ago, but I see its place in the overall kind of.
It's a fun
catalog.
movie to revisit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think of all of the installments too that happened later on, like the H2O, or like Halloween 2018. It's definitely my favorite.
I think that my big problem I think that my big problem with H2O, and I know a lot of millennials my age do kind of hold H2O up as this like great piece of art. It is not. It is a Dimension knockoff of just kind of wanting to replicate the success of Scream and put it on Halloween, which, I mean, there's no shame in that. Like, I'm glad that they did that with the franchise because it kind of breathes some new life in it. Mm-hmm. But there's elements of H2O that I maybe get a little impatient with that I feel like, is there a missing reel of this movie? It's like, this movie is just over 80 minutes long. What is missing of the story?
Yeah.
And I don't really get that from something like Halloween 2.
Right. Mm-hmm. But again, like we said earlier, something that's missing from H2O is Haddonfield. Suddenly we're in California and we're hearing about Yosemite National Park. Like, I wouldn't really expect that from a Halloween film. So I think that it did a disservice to itself by leaving Haddonfield, to be honest. And I get that Laurie had to escape and create a new life, but again, I think that it just kind of reemphasized that Haddonfield is such an important aspect of all of these Halloween films, and the moment that you leave that, it weakens the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get her. Yeah, again, I get her witness relocation situation in the other movies, but it does make it not really feel too much like a Halloween movie.
Right. She should have gone to Jersey or something. I don't know.
Because even in 2018, Laurie Strode, who becomes this wilderness woman, who's just going to try and keep her. I don't know what her end goal is, but she's not far from the town. She's still there. Mm-hmm. Her family's still in Haddonfield. So.
Right. Well, and also in that timeline, Michael, she knows, is still alive too.
Right.
Which I think really makes a huge difference with the character.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, he's also in jail.
Yeah.
All right. We didn't have to go through all that. But, I think it is watchable, but maybe for me, H2O is just a little bit more fun because it's so much more campy.
Sure.
That I'm just oh my God. I just like watching it and screaming at it for how dumb it is sometimes.
Yeah.
And just the fact that it's from 98.
98,
yeah.
20 years later, Pete. Yeah. And even the title, H2O.
So stupid. What does that mean?
Yeah.
H2O.
Right.
What? Mm-hmm. Come on. So it's just so silly that it's just fun for me to sit down and watch and just scream at it and yell. This movie is a little more effective as a horror movie. It's more effective. So I'm just more apt to just watch.
Is the Rob Zombie movie set in a hospital in Halloween 2?
Gosh.
Isn't the Rob Zombie Halloween 2 supposed to be
it's supposed to be pretty wild,
off its rocker? It's crazy.
It went off the rails. Overall, the story is the same and very Halloween as far as Michael hunting down Laurie, but I know that the moments are a lot different. The mom comes in as this sort of demon on Michael's shoulder as an all white kind of character in her gown and stuff, and then there's a white horse.
Yeah, I was going to say, she's with this white horse.
There are hospital scenes in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, and I think that honestly, watching that back, I think the studio literally said, you need to make this film resemble the original Halloween 2 as much as possible. Therefore, we need hospital scenes.
Sure.
Because it's only the first maybe 10 minutes of the film, and it's all a nightmare that Laurie's having. But if you look back at the marketing of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, it is so much like the original Halloween 2. It's a lot of hospital action and Laurie escaping and less of the imagery of what the film ended up being.
I remember Rob Zombie talking about his back and forth with the Weinsteins about the first movie. Of just how unhappy they were with it. And then it had this insane opening weekend, and he didn't really hear anything from them.
Yeah.
About their problems with the story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They pretty much just like wrote the check for the next movie.
Yeah. I think that luckily with his original Halloween remake, he couldn't do too much recreation of the story of Michael Myers. So I think he ended up just literally recreating the original Halloween movie scene by scene in in 3/4 of his film. Because I know the first quarter is just the genesis of Michael and a young Michael living in this like trashed house and his crazy family.
Those are all the scenes that I like to skip.
Same. I watched it as a teen and I've seen it as an adult, and I still don't care for the development of like what comes to be Michael Myers. I like Michael Myers mysterious,
like some mystery,
and unexplained, and that one just kind of explains it too much, and I don't really care about that background. And the original Halloween 2 arguably kind of tries to explain as well, as far as like the sister storyline goes and giving Michael a motive, but it's not as spelled out and literal. So at least we can, still leave some up to the imagination.
Sure.
Is the first one the one where Danielle Harris is running around without her top for like 45 minutes?
Yes, where she's with her boyfriend in the house.
Yeah. And she's running around for a good portion of the movie with
while he's
no
chasing
top
her.
on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Completely tits out.
Yeah.
She's like, okay. And let me say this. 2009, Danielle Harris playing a high school student. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. I think at the time I remember watching Rob Zombie's Halloween and seeing Danielle on the screen, and I don't know, I guess I wasn't using the internet as much, but I had no idea she was going to be a part of the film. Yeah. So the first time I saw her was on the theater screen.
Yeah.
And right when I saw her, it was like, as a Halloween fan, and it was an instant like, wait, that's Jamie.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait, that's so cool. Like,
and
she's
like
back
Annie.
And she's Annie. And I thought it was so nice to actually see her in the film. Yeah. Mm-hmm. She passed as a teenager, I think, at the time.
Sure.
But also,
I think it works.
It worked. And I know in Hollywood they cast them a little older looking. Maybe I was just like sensitized or conditioned to kind of see teenagers that way in shows and movies. But I think she was at the right moment for sure.
She's petite, she's small, she's 31, but hey, who cares?
Yeah.
Because she's my age. I'm like,
I met her at Halloween Horror Nights.
Oh, cool.
I think the year that the Halloween 2 of Rob Zombies came out. She was really
cool.
sweet. Yeah.
At Universal?
Yeah, she was doing the red carpet at like the opening of
fun.
the Horror Nights that year. Yeah, she was really sweet.
Cool. She only got to do one episode of The Conners. They killed her.
Really?
Yeah, she had a brain tumor.
Oh. That's a bummer.
Yeah, but it gave Darlene a story arc, like a midlife crisis. Mm-hmm. Like somebody that I was a kid with died. Mm-hmm. And it kind of gave her this like midlife crisis, like, existential turmoil. But she got to be in the episode. So
that's cool.
That was good.
Well, I just got reminded of this story I heard, though, that Danielle Harris and Scout Taylor Compton, who played Laurie in Rob Zombie's remakes, met Jamie Lee Curtis at the Halloween Ends premiere, and the encounter was not that nice.
Interesting.
Yeah, Jamie apparently didn't know them or what movies they were referring to.
She's
when
like,
they
and you are.
Yeah. Sure. But they have a press photo together. The photo looked really nice. It looked like they all got along, but apparently it wasn't a good encounter.
Like, real talk, you show me a picture of Scout Taylor Compton right now. There's pictures of her at the red carpet, and I can't tell who's her, which one she is.
Yeah.
Not that she is, unattractive or not noteworthy or anything.
It's kind of like a white facial blindness type of thing.
No, but I mean, she's not exactly like a household name.
Standing out.
You know what I mean? I don't really know what else she's done. She looks a little different in that movie than she does now. So I don't really blame Jamie. Why would she know who that is?
Right.
You know, maybe Danielle Harris is a little bit more like, oh, she was in the sequel. But I don't know that Jamie Lee Curtis is a Halloween fan of like the
like,
franchise.
I
right?
don't know if she kept up and knows the characters and the actors that played them as in depth. Right.
Yes.
Sure.
But if it's brought up in conversation, like, "Hey, I was in Halloween 4 where I played your daughter," I would think Jamie knows a little something about that.
Yeah, then she should be like, "Oh, cool!" Like, yeah. But if they said that and she was like, "I don't know you,"
right?
That's rude.
Yeah.
But if it was just like, "Oh, this is Scout and Danielle," it's like, "Great,
yeah, okay,
awesome."
Do you want your press round?
Yeah.
Photo.
Yeah.
Well, God bless them.
Yeah, God bless. I think maybe Jamie just needed someone in her ear, like they were the remakes.
Yeah,
they were the remakes. They played you.
They
and
get
played
moved
Annie.
along those carpets fast. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Oh well.
I think that okay. So you said that Halloween 2 is definitely your second favorite Halloween movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would probably have to agree with you.
Yeah.
If I were to rank them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If I'm gonna put one on, and it's not the first movie, which one am I putting on?
I mean, I'm probably going to put on Halloween H2O.
Probably going to put on H2O.
We're probably going to put on H2O, but I get that maybe the stronger movie is Halloween 2.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If we're doing a rewatch of all of them, I mean, I guess you just go in order. But I guess you just go in order.
Mm-hmm.
We need to revisit our Halloween 3 Season of the Witch.
I just gave that a rewatch the other day, and I have to say, growing up, I wouldn't even watch it when it was
that
on
one
the
always
marathons.
outrages children when they find out Michael Myers is not in it.
Yeah, I know. I remember being like, "Oh, this is the movie during the marathon that I can go eat. Like I can come back and Michael will be back on the screen.
Oh
like
my God.
I can take my break." It was intermission for me. But now, like I gave it a rewatch the other day. I can appreciate it a little more now.
Yeah.
Sure.
And just get over the fact that, all right, they released another movie without, Halloween or without Michael in it, and we're good.
Yeah, I think it's the very last act of the movie when they start like the main like spells and Stonehenge and all that shit. That's when I'm just like, what in the shit is going on? Everything leading up to it is fun, but the final showdown and like the warehouse and Stonehenge and like lightning bolts and
I mean, it was
crazy.
John Carpenter trying to really light that series on fire and like throw it out a car window. Of that, you want another Halloween movie? Well, Michael Myers is not going to be in this movie,
right?
So quit trying to offer me sequels for it,
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
interesting idea. Turn it into a franchise, but or an anthology, I should say. But yeah, but yeah, we have it in 4K. Mm-hmm. We bought it. It looks great.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
I've got to watch it.
So
in 4K.
yeah, we'll probably watch it this year.
Yeah,
just because since we just revisited this one, so. We'll get to it, and eventually, I think for Scott and I, 4, 5, and 6 are a little bit of a chore, but I think it's definitely
we don't
worth
really watch
it
them a lot. I'll watch them if they're on AMC. I'll kind of dip in and out.
Yeah,
just have them play.
Yeah, I'll watch them fully. I do like them, but I can see how fans, or not even fans, just like average viewers can fall off during those installments for sure. Maybe not 4. I think 4 is actually a general public favorite. Yeah. Like I think some people will argue that 4 is better than 2 and really, or might even call that their favorite even over the original.
Okay.
But yeah, after 4, it gets a little wonky.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So before we wrap it up, I did pull up the Golden Globe year that Jamie Lee Curtis won. Scott, I want to give you the rundown. It's
so
1994.
This is 1994.
It's Best Actress in a Musical or Comedy. Okay. So Jamie Lee Curtis takes the win as Helen Tasker in True Lies, and she's up against Gina Davis in Speechless. Do you remember Speechless?
That is a movie that has been like evaporated from public
Speechless
memory.
Even exists. Michael Keaton, Gina Davis, who co-produced with her then husband Rennie Harlan. Bonnie Bedelia and Christopher Reeve.
Bonnie Bedelia.
Yeah, directed by Ron Underwood. It is, it doesn't look like a comedy to me. I think this is a drama. but it was in comedy.
Let me
anyway,
look at the poster.
Gina Davis loses.
Okay, I've got nothing,
no
and I'm
memory.
looking at the poster.
Okay, next one, Andie MacDowell in 4 Weddings and a Funeral.
Okay, sure.
Or as me and
Yeah.
Matt Earhart like to call her in college, Andie McBoring.
She is. I love 4 Weddings and a Funeral. She is kind of dull in that movie.
She's kind of dull.
But it makes sense that she got the Globe, though. That movie was a huge deal.
As young kids will know her today, mother of Margaret Qualley of The Substance.
Yep. Born in Montana. Did you know that?
Young Demi Moore. Margaret was born in
She was
Montana?
born in Helena.
Andy strikes me
Yep.
as somebody that went to retire in Montana.
Mm-hmm.
All right, up next we have Shirley MacLaine in Guarding Tess.
Sure.
Ooh,
I think
good one.
that movie also had minor Oscar buzz attached to it,
Yeah.
too.
And lastly, rounding out, Emma Thompson in Junior.
Of course. Golden Globe nominated Junior.
Junior. Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense when you were reading those nominees that Jamie Lee Curtis does win for True Lies. Once again, I mentioned it before, but I think the 1994 Best Actress race was very drama-heavy and kind of a weak year all around.
Yeah. I want to pull up award for Best Actress in a drama. Hold on.
I want to see if I can guess the dramas.
Okay, motion picture drama in 94.
Was the winner... Okay, I want to see if I can guess it.
Okay.
Was the winner Jessica Lange
For Blue Sky.
for Blue Sky?
And she won the Oscar.
Yep, tipped off the
For
Oscar.
Okay.
Was Winona there for Little Women?
Winona is not here for Little Women.
What about Susan Sarandon for The Client?
No.
Meg Ryan for When a Man Loves a Woman?
No.
Okay, now I'm just like going down the...
I wonder if you're in the wrong year.
Nell?
Jodie Foster for
Jodie
Nell.
Foster for Nell?
Yes.
Okay, so I have 2.
Yes.
I think I've got most of the Oscar nominees here. All right, give me the other ones.
Jennifer Jason Leigh for Mrs. Parker
Yep.
in The Vicious Circle.
She came close.
Miranda Richardson in Tom and Viv.
She got an Oscar nomination.
Not Tom and
too,
Viv.
for that.
Yeah, and then lastly, bitch, Meryl Streep in The River Wild.
Yep.
The River Wild with Kevin Bacon as the evil river guide. Oh,
Whitewater rafting adventure with
Right.
Meryl Streep.
Golden Globes. Where was Winona?
Yeah, she didn't get it.
Interesting. Yeah, it had to be this year. Yeah. So the Golden Globes are wild, but at least Jamie Lee Curtis got some recognition 25 years before her Academy Award, which she ultimately gets for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I mean, can you argue that other actresses on there are more deserving for that Academy Award?
For that Academy Award?
For supporting, yeah.
I mean, yeah. Probably.
I think the actress from the same film.
Everybody liked
was
Stephanie
Stephanie
Hsu.
Hsu, like,
Everybody
wow,
was
what
really...
about her?
I think that my pick was
Yeah.
Carrie Condon for The Banshees of Inisherin.
Yeah.
I think she was my personal vote that year.
That was a good movie. But yeah, it's, is it the career award? I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm glad that
I'm
Jamie Lee
not
Curtis has
mad
an-
about it.
I'm
Yeah.
glad that Jamie Lee Curtis has an Oscar. But we should probably wrap this baby up.
Gabe, thank you so much for joining
Thank
us.
you for
We got
having
to
me.
talk about Halloween
I
again
know.
on the podcast. Is
much fun.
Michael Myers a gay icon? I think so.
I think so.
I think so.
The gays love Michael.
Yeah.
Little
That's
bit of a
Uncle.
little bit of a
some
stunt queen.
Aren't there some TikToks of him like voguing out there? I mean, there's got to be.
Right. And those it's always Michael at the front.
Yeah.
He's Beyonce of the horror
Yes, he
films.
always
Yeah, he
is. Yeah. In the heels and everything. He
Yeah,
always has
it's
to be the
always
Beyonce.
him.
Yeah.
We love him.
Oh man, that's funny. All right, Gabe, is there anything you want to plug before we let you go? Any upcoming projects for the children?
I'm working on some new music right now, so stay tuned for that. I'm definitely in the Halloween spirit vibe right now at
Yes.
home and all around town. Just enjoy the rest of the Halloween movies. And
I
stay
sometimes,
spooky.
when I go to
Yeah.
Jones Coffee, which is situated right across the railroad tracks, I'll sometimes just listen to music or a podcast with my coffee and just stare at the house.
Yeah.
I will
I
just
love to
stare
do
at the
that, too.
house while sitting out in front of Jones.
Yeah, I love
much.
doing that.
Yep.
It's so fun.
Yet every time we like stroll down the street and people are taking pictures in front of it, I'm always like, ugh, tourists.
Yeah, no, me too. I'm such a South Pass snob.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah, we're
yeah,
like,
I live here. Okay,
This is my life. What am I gonna do?
right?
I don't begrudge the tourists for taking their photos in front of.
No, it's fine.
in
I
front of
would
the
too
house.
if I was in like.
Yeah, I mean we have. We've taken plenty of pictures in front of Laurie Strode's house. which
Laurie's
is
house was
a
just
couple
up for
blocks
sale.
away.
Yep.
Yeah,
I don't know what it's sold for.
Yeah,
Probably a lot.
yeah, I know.
Probably have to do a lot of work to that house. 'cause
I know.
I do not think that house has had a lot of renovations to it.
Yeah, a lot of the houses. Funny enough, I rented a room in a house on the street over, like right over from Laurie's house.
Oh, okay.
Much older house. A lot of them are very old and artisan and need a lot of upkeep. So I would imagine it's probably the same inside that one.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you can make it into town, listeners,
We'll take you around.
Give you the whole tour.
We can give you the full tour.
Haddonfield.
Yes.
and Raytown from Mama's Family, and
PJ Souls
Everything in the neighborhood.
walks up the walkway to the
Thelma
Mama's
Harper's
house.
Yeah.
So she's an honorary Harper.
Oh, Rob Zombie's Halloween house is in South Pass too.
Oh shit! That I did not know.
Yeah.
I'll have to look that one up. All right, Gabe. Well, you're welcome back on the show anytime.
Yes, thanks so much for having
This-
me. Always
yeah,
so much fun.
This was a lot of
especially
fun.
for Halloween.
Absolutely. Listeners, stick around. We'll be right back. Listeners, we're back.
We're back.
Thanks for sticking around. Fun Halloween 2 episode. I mean, every time we talk about Halloween, we got to talk about the entire franchise.
Right?
It's just,
I know.
It's just how it goes.
You just kind of have to do it.
yeah, yeah. And I'm glad to do it. Michael Meyers, this diva.
Yeah, it was fun to return to talking about our favorite stunt queen, Mike Meyers.
She's back, and it's her season.
Yeah.
It's her time right now.
Do you think that when Michael Meyers comes into the workroom, he like busts open the jumpsuit?
It's a tearaway.
It's like a tearaway.
I hope so. But what's underneath the tearaway of the jumpsuit? We don't know.
A little bikini.
We don't know. Yeah. But Michael Myers,
He's here to slay.
Vaughn,
He's here to slay the season.
so stupid. Well, that's too long. It's back. Well, listeners, again, like we said, thank you for sticking around to the very, very end. But before we let you go, I think
Patreon shout-outs?
it's just about
Let's hear
that
'em.
time. For some Patreon shout-outs, we want to thank all of our wonderful active patrons, including Leah, SB, Ashanti, I said that wrong last time. Brian, Sarah, Richard, Mark, Jeff, Deja, Amy, Erica, Anna, Mitchie, our friends at How Do You Drew, Andy, Kate, Pep, Roberto, Daisy, Patrick, Kelly, Chrissy, Stephen, Desiree, Laura, Thomas, Laurie, Jess, Rabbit, Lawrence, Lisa, Alexis, Thomas, Millie, good scroll, Ted, Benny, Melanie, Susan, Paul, Jamie, Drew, Genevieve, Dawn, Joshua, Aaron, John, Nick, Christine, and Rufino. You guys,
Thank you so much.
thanks for following or thanks for donating to the Patreon.
We have a lot of fun stuff on Patreon right now.
Yes, indeed.
We have at the $5 level the TV shows that keep us gay. We're going to have some fun October episodes around the time this episode comes out. We are going to be talking about some Halloween episodes of Roseanne.
Yes, indeed. Roseanne had some iconic Halloween episodes in the 90s. Really, really fun stuff. And so we're going to be talking about our favorite ones.
Yeah, so at the $5 level, you'll get the TV that keeps us gay. And at the $10 level, you will get the monthly Watch With Us commentaries.
Yes, indeed. We watch a movie and record a commentary live as the movie is playing and give instructions on how to sync that audio track up whilst you are watching the movie on your TV or laptop or however you watch movies. So super fun.
2 bonus episodes a month.
At the $10 level, you get the commentaries and all the TV that keeps us going,
you can,
including our 90210
you
summer
can
series.
go back and look through at some of the $5 level stuff. We have some fun stuff, including the 90210 episodes.
Yes, indeed. Lots of great stuff at patreon.com/movies that made us gay. We'd also love it if you would rate, review, and subscribe.
Give us 5 stars.
Indeed. Head over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and you can give us a 5-star rating. And whilst you're doing that, you can also write us a review. Let's see if there's any new reviews.
I think there is a new one.
Oh, a new one? There is a new one. This is from Apple Podcast user Payne's Mom. Hi, Payne's Mom, and hi, Payne. I just want to be friends with Pete and Scott. Oh, well, you are. Parasocially, we're all friends.
Yeah.
This is such a fun podcast. 10 out of 10. No notes. Heart emoji. Pink heart emoji.
That's so sweet. I love
5
it.
stars. And the title of the episode, or the title of the comment is "Thank you for being a friend." Payne's Mom, that was so awesome of you. And
I love that.
Yeah, say hi to Payne for us. And say hi to everyone and tell them to listen to our show.
Yeah. Like, subscribe, share, send to your friends and family.
Yes. On Instagram, we're at Movies That Made Us Gay. And when you follow us on Instagram, like the posts that we post, save them, forward them, comment on them, any kind of what do we call interaction like that, really helps the show to reach a wider audience. We love all that interaction. It's wonderful. And tell your friends. We're at Movies That Made Us Gay on Instagram. We're the most active on IG of all the socials. So if you want to follow our personals, feel free. My name's Pete. I'm at Peter Lasagna on Instagram.
Scott Youngballer on Instagram. And follow my little box. See how many times I've logged Elvira's Haunted Hills.
Yeah, it's in our description.
It could be at least one more before the 31st. You never know.
You never know. All right, everybody. Unpleasant dreams until next week.
The evil has escaped. Is that what he says?
I think so.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, guys.